Hello, my name is Carolina Reigada. I'm a family doctor in Brazil and a member of SIM's working group called Women Family Doctors. Today, I'm really happy to interview Dr. Anna Stavdal, president of WONCA. Dr. Anna, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You've been a family doctor in Oslo for more than 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to be a family doctor?
Well, I have always been engaged in understanding society, understanding people's contexts. I'm curious about people, understanding people. I always found that interesting. I grew up with theater, drama, literature, and family medicine is in a way, not that it is entertainment, but it gives you some of the same things you experience when you go to the theater and you sit in the first row. You are actually observing life itself. So I think not that this was what I thought at that time, but I think that was what attracted me to the specialty of family medicine.
Wonderful. It's really an inspiring specialty, right?
It is.
And besides your clinical practice, you also act as an associate professor at University of Oslo and worked as chairman of the Scandinavian Journal of Primary Care. In recent years, we have been talking more and more about gender inequities in research and scientific publications. Despite some progress, we still face barriers to female participation in that area. Have you experienced that? Could you give us an example and how you overcame it?
First of all, my post at the University of Oslo, first of all, I'm teaching medical students clinical communication. I'm also doing some other teaching in some other fields, and then I'm meeting the students for their final exams. So that is basically what I've been doing as university teacher. When it comes to my affiliation with the Scandinavian Journal of Primary Health Care, I was the chairman or the chairwoman of the board owning the journal. So I was not active in research myself, but of course I have followed the development of recruitment of researchers to both genders in my region, and also through working with the Scandinavian Journal of Primary Health Care. There are always barriers. But I have to say that I live in maybe the most or one of the most gender equal countries in the world when it comes to legal rights and also rights related to reproductive health. I can name the list, might be controversial, but of course it includes family planning, including abortion laws, but also maternity leave. We have now 1 year of maternity leave in Norway. Over the last years, the maternity leave now is obligatory to share with the father or the other partner, the other parent, whatever gender. So I have been helped by legislation and also strong women going ahead of me. But if you ask me whether I have experienced that gender plays out in a career? Of course it does. And overcoming it, I have no recipe for that, but having good role models, having good friends, I mean also professional friends, and not least having the support of my partner and my family counts a lot. So I think, I don't know if I have overcome it because these things are always there. I mean, it's embedded in our social structures. Sometimes gender plays out in a positive way for women, but gender is definitely a variable which always plays out in all relationships and in all professions, for sure.
And we should always pay attention to those influences. And it's not something we usually see in graduation as a social determinant of health. In Latin America, we still have many difficulties. Maternity leaves are not a law. In Brazil, we have 120 days only for the mother. Other countries like a month, 2. And we are not seeing any advances in that area. As far as family reproductive rights, some countries are going further with the laws. Like we talk about a green wave sweeping America. But again, it's not a model all the countries are going for these days. Actually, Brazil is going backwards.
Yeah.
So it's a discussion we need to really look out. Actually, in Brazil, we recently achieved gender parity amongst the editors of the scientific journal of our National Society of Family Medicine. And then,
congratulations.
Thank you. That was a struggle. And in our Congress, National Congress, we also fought a lot about gender parity in the lectures, in workshops, and all the activities, because that was a... Do you feel that family medicine still has a lot to go on? But, or no, not a thing we can see in most countries. It's like a regional thing.
You mean the gender equality?
Yes.
I think that is always something we shall pay attention to, but I think there are huge differences around the world. And I think what we could do from the perspective of the global community from WONCA is to support our female colleagues in different countries and regions. One very concrete measure is to always look for the female representatives when we look for people, for committees, to be speakers, to contribute in groups, but also when we look for nominations to the posts on the regional levels and on the global level. So I think, but we have to work on that all the time. One thing regarding gender, which is a concern for me, is that the concept of gender is changing also as we speak. So we no longer have one gender, we have several genders. And how do we deal with that in the gender equity dialogue? That's something we need to look into. And I think that women in family medicine should take the lead to address that and explore what's inside there and how do we deal with it. Because we should make sure, at least we should make sure that everyone is welcome. And it is the views of people, whatever gender, which is, I mean, the value for us. And we should make sure that voice is equally distributed, and gender is one overarching variable, of course, the overarching variable.
Wonderful. Throughout your career, you've been occupying several leadership positions. Chairman of the Norwegian College for General Practice, president, and I think the first president of the Nordic Federation of General Practice, senior advisor for the Norwegian Health Supervision Board, vice president and president of WONCA Europe, and now president of WONCA. It's quite an impressive career, especially for us here in Latin America, where women in general are not stimulated or educated to be a leader. Dr. Anna, while growing up, which influences encourage you into being a leader?
Where I'm sitting right now is the house where I grew up. And I grew up in quite an unconventional family. Born in 59, my mother was almost 43 years when she had me. Both my parents were that age, and they had one child, my older sister, before that. So for that time, that was quite old to have children. That's one thing. My mother was the breadwinner. She was a high school teacher, but also a trained actress. And she was, I woke up to her voice every morning, the first 10 years of my life, from the radio, where she provided instructions in morning gymnastics for 5 minutes. So that's my mother. She taught languages, drama, literature in high school. My father was the first sociologist in Norway, the first one to take a degree in sociology. There were no jobs for him. This was a very new subject. So she was providing for the family, and he had some jobs here, some jobs there. So it was the opposite role play, so to say, from what I saw around me. What they had in common was an interest in and a felt responsibility for the society around us. And we were brought up to look for where we could be useful for other people. So I think that was maybe, this is reflections you make when you are grown up. For me, when I grew up, it was just a given thing. It was the way it had to be. But I think that is maybe the most important factor that inspired me. Besides that, I'm maybe an impatient person. So when I see that things are not the way they should be, or here we could make a small change, and then the small change would lead to a big change. It's in my nature, so to say. Some people find that, of course, a little bit hard to live with if they're in I mean, speaking of my own family members, but that has been another driving force. And thirdly, I think the passion for what we're actually doing, the field of family medicine, because I see that our profession, and that goes for every country in the world, I haven't seen any exception. Family medicine is not on the top of the hierarchy. Whereas we know that the impact for people and people's health should in a way indicate that it should be on the top of the hierarchy. So it's a strange paradox in that. And I think that has inspired me to use what I can hold of energy and intellect to try and influence that imbalance. So I find it very meaningful to speak on behalf of family medicine. And of course, if you combine these things, many would say that it is a natural thing for me to take the lead, and sometimes unbearable not to get the opportunity to lead. So, well, a little bit of self-scrutiny in this, but I think it's close to the truth.
What an interesting family. You
Yeah, it was interesting, and of course also challenging. It's never easy to be the one who doesn't fit into the pattern, into the but it was interesting. Yes, it was interesting, and I can tell you as much as when I spoke in my father's funeral. He was the first one to pass away. I said to him that the most important things I use in my work, I learned from you. And he was not a doctor.
and it's amazing that family medicine is okay, it's medicine, but it needs so many other qualities to make a family doctor. You need to listen, you need to feel, you need to dramatize sometimes, and you need to create a relationship that is based on an individual level, but also okay, community level, understand what is going on. That's not the skills we learn in university. And it's really inspiring. It's like poetry that you learn that in your family.
You're right. That's the beauty of it, that it's so many faceted. That's the beauty of it. So it's an endless source also of experience for the physician, for the doctor herself, to have the privilege to meet people in all stages of life, and also through all your own stages of life.
Some bit of self-ascension here also. I teach residents, and it's really amazing the difference in me each year. Like if I see myself 5 years ago or 10 years ago when I started family medicine, it's a different. For example, I cannot go on prenatal care now after I had my daughter and do things I did before I had my daughter, and teach how to breastfeed and how to take care of a baby and how to spend sleepless nights and still work.
Exactly.
Our experience, it goes miles when we talk to students. It's something we teach in college, but I teach residents, and it's also really different when I see the one graduated like 5 years ago and the ones I'm teaching now. It's amazing. Family medicine is really a blessing to exist.
Yeah, it makes yourself grow as a person.
Dr. Anna, we talked a little about this, but if you have any more thoughts on this subject, have you faced any obstacles or difficulties during your career that were gender related? Obstacles you faced just because you're a woman and probably would not have existed if you were a man? And if so, could you tell us what helped you to get through it? I think we talked a little about it, but if you have something more.
I think that the hurdles have not been visible, which makes it in a way harder to overcome. And you don't understand before afterwards. Okay, this was what happened. And of course, the cost is then that you get angry, but you have nowhere to direct your anger because the situation is over. And you go, oh, now I understand what happened. And I mean, it's not, things are not functioning that way. So I think what I have learned over the years is to use other women to reflect on experiences and observations, and sometimes, and also women who are ahead of me age-wise, so they can confirm. Oh yeah. I mean, this is, of course. I mean, you're right about that. But also, like you said, with the sleepless nights, when you guide new mothers now, when you have your own experience, you can say, you just have to live it. It's over in some weeks or in some months. And maybe you will even miss to have that little baby, I mean, crawling all over you. So to have other people sharing their experience and show you that there is also positive things coming with these hurdles, because you learn and you learn that things will pass and it will get better. You are better prepared next time, and you recognize the patterns easier. But also learning that it's not worth all the time to pick on it and say, here. Sometimes I just let it pass and I smile to myself and think, yeah, here it is again. And maybe it doesn't matter even, because what we seldom, women, when we speak about gender and positions, we often forget to speak about when being a woman is an advantage. And I'm not speaking high heels and seductive manners. I'm speaking what we maybe could refer to as female features or ways of I mean, we are two different gender or two different sexes after all. So, for example, women being more collaborative in their approach, often, at least that is my experience, not always. And also, we can be less threatening to men, I mean, than other men, sometimes, not always, which is good. And I believe in a mixture. I like the mixture. I think the mixture being, I mean, in our global community, mixture of crisscross all variables, but also the mixture of gender. It leads to synergies, and we produce more when we are inspiring each other across the gender borders, so to say. So, but I think taking time to observe and reflect on what you experience, and have a few people who you trust to talk them over the experiences and say, what is this? And sometimes you will be arrested and say, no, that was not harassment, that was not gendered, that was only because you were too good or too bad. The reaction you receive. So I think, yeah, and also have male friends who can give you support and correctives. Males who you trust, and where there is a mutual trust, and men who want you to succeed. So they can also be that corrective and be that support. So I think there are two sides of it: support and correctives.
Yeah, to get wiser, not to waste our energy being angry, and start to recognize some patterns. And okay, I see it's happening.
Exactly.
I need to call my friends. I need to see how I will address it, not get angry all the time. It seems like a really good advice. And to look for our qualities. We have so many of them.
Right.
Right.
That's right. But also sometimes get angry and go for it. I mean, so,
there is a time for
so
angry.
Maybe
there is a time to be
exactly. There's a time and place for everything. Yeah, that's
yes.
right.
Dr. Anna, in meeting and lectures with our working group, the Women in Family Medicine, we have been trying this last year to bring awareness about gender violence and provide some group support amongst us and other women, create a network of women family doctors and leaders. Do you have recommendations for female residents and colleagues to reach and act in positions of leadership?
How to achieve, or how to get to leadership positions? Is that what you ask?
Yes, how to get there. Sometimes we feel like we can't, or we shouldn't, or it's like an imposter syndrome.
I think it's overlapping with the response I gave to the last questions. I think
yes,
having good allies, and also allies among men, is important. To have mentors who can support you and sometimes normalize your experiences, because the higher up the ladder you get, the colder it is, at times. And I think that goes for women and men alike. So we need also to grow a thicker skin, and without becoming cynical. And that's a fine balance. So we need to keep the empathic self, but also not get hurt when you are exposed to the dirty tricks. And when it comes to positions and leadership, power is always in the balance. And when power is in the balance, dirty tricks are all around you. And it can hurt a lot. It can hurt a lot to be exposed to or be the target of tricks like that. And that's alike for men and women. So we shall not fall into the ditch and say, if I didn't win that election, or if I didn't achieve this or that, or they didn't agree with me, it's because I'm a woman. We shall think twice before we draw that conclusion. But the advice must be to go for it, and also be prepared that it is sometimes a hard life. And sometimes people will use your gender or your color or your height or your weight or your looks, or the way you speak English or not speak English, or the way, for me, if I don't know much Portuguese, but I can do some sentences in Spanish. I can communicate in Spanish. I'm not a fluent speaker, but I can say, I can communicate and get my messages across in Spanish. But I speak like a child. I speak like a baby in Spanish, right? But then to tell yourself that this is better than not saying this in Spanish, and also be able to expose your imperfection in many ways. I mean, we don't know everything, even if we are leaders. I mean, never. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, because sometimes I feel like women think they need to be perfect to be there. They don't think about getting there and learning and building and getting some more experience. It's a normal thing for me to hear and to feel like.
Exactly. And the only thing we should think when we make mistakes or we are imperfect is that, okay, I'm learning something here, and I'm improving, or this is an opportunity to improve. I'm not saying I'm able to do that all the times. I am not satisfied with my own performance, or others are expressing the same. But it's a good point of departure, at least, to have that ambition to say, well, next time, better next time.
Amazing. I could go on and on like for hours. Okay. Want to know, if you have one, tell us what is your favorite book, your favorite movie, and a woman you admire, and why.
My favorite book is written by a Norwegian author. The author's name is Sigrid Undset. She was actually a Nobel laureate in literature in 1928. She wrote a trilogy about a woman, Kristin Lavransdatter, and we followed Kristin from her childhood till her death. She lived in the Middle Ages in Norway. And you can think, oh, is this, well, the story is about a woman who could have lived in our times. It's a story about a woman. So that is one of my favorite books. If I had to pick one, that must be the one. My favorite movie is made by a Swedish film director, also internationally renowned. His name was Ingmar Bergman, and he made a great film called Fanny and Alexander. And we know that this was partly autobiographical. It's about a pair of siblings and their childhood and this big family around them. It's so dramatic. And first of all, it's so insightful in children and family relationships. And it's a beautiful film, which can be watched everywhere. You don't have to be a Nordic person to enjoy it. I'm sure you would have loved it to see this movie also in Brasilia, in Brazil. And yeah, there's so many aspects covered there. Great artist who made this film, which was the main film, his testament in a way, his legacy. And for the woman I admire, I remain in my own context geographically. Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was Norway's first female prime minister in 1981. That was very early. She was also leading the UN Commission on Sustainable Development. I mean, long before it became modern. And she was also Director General in the WHO for 4 years during the HIV epidemic. She's still alive. She's a mother of 4. She lost one of her children in suicide. She's still strong in public debate. And she was actually the main target for the terrorists who attacked the youth camp in Norway 11 years ago and shot 69 young people dead because of their political views. She was there, visited the camp, the summer camp, for this labor young party of the Labour Party, Norwegian Labour Party. She was there speaking to them. She's very popular. Now she's 80 something, 85 maybe, 86. And when she was interviewed afterwards, what do you think about this? You are said to be his main target. Just one sentence. This is not about me. That's the woman I admire.
Wow. This is not about me. I mean, general. When you said it, I felt like my life is not just about me. Okay.
It's for the greater cause.
Yes.
And that's what makes it worth it. I mean, the work we're doing and the lives we're living.
Yes, in that course, finally, Dr. Anna, you've been present through a hard period of our history. We are facing a pandemic, a war, also social challenges related to this period have been appearing in our clinics, in our patients. How do you visualize the future of family medicine through these times?
I think now is really the golden moment to make the case for family medicine and primary care. That's what people need. They need support and care in the communities where they live. And I think now more than ever, our task is to help people and ourselves to cope with change. Because what we're seeing right now is it just happens to be many changes at the same time, many paradigm shifts at the same time. And this is not the end. More will come. So how to live with that? How to live with changes, chaos, and uncertainty? Then we need to help each other and help our populations, our patients, to find the roots in ourselves, the joy of being alive, having a functioning body, endure the ailments and complaints we might have, but also look for the resources we have, one in each of us, and together. So a bright future. Of course, I'm bound to say that. I need to say that. But of course,
Yes.
I also have my concerns.
Yes, but when I hear you say it, I don't feel any fear. It's amazing. A world changing. We don't know what will come next. We can predict, we can control, but we have no fear. We'll be there.
Exactly. We'll be there.
Wow, I cannot thank you enough. I was anxious for the interview, but I felt like I was talking to a master in her room, in her house, and it was such a pleasure and such an inspiration to talk to you. Thank you again for this interview, for your time, for your leadership, for being our president now. And if you have any more thoughts, considerations, we are glad to hear.
Thank you, Carolina. This has been a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person. I hope it will not be too long. So thank you very much.
Thank you.